Welcome to Connect with Animals. High above the African plains, the giraffe turns height into survival. How does a long neck help it spot danger, escape predators, and stay alive? Let's discover the high-rise survival strategy of the giraffe.
On the vast plains of Africa, survival is a masterpiece of evolution, a daily dance between life and death. For the giraffe, height is not just a feature, it is the ultimate advantage in this ancient land.
The iconic neck grants access to a banquet beyond the reach of others, a private feast in the sky.
This towering perspective offers more than just food. It provides the gift of foresight, a watchtower of flesh and bone.
From this elevation, danger reveals itself long before it can strike, turning the savanna into an open book.
Other species instinctively recognize this advantage, gathering under the watchful eyes of the gentle giant. Vigilance is a constant state of being. A moment of distraction is a luxury the hunted cannot afford. Even in motion, there is an effortless grace, a rhythm perfectly attuned to the ancient pulse of the land. But peace on the savanna is a fragile thing, a temporary truce in an endless war. For where there is life in abundance, the shadow of the hunter is never far behind. Apex predators are sculpted by hunger and patience, embodying the raw power of the wild. Every movement is a calculated whisper, a deadly advance cloaked in silence and shadow.
The first sign of danger is not a roar, but a subtle break in the savanna's rhythm. A silent conversation unfolds across the distant, a question of survival posed by the hunter. Fear is contagious. The giraffe's silent alarm ripples through the entire herd, a wave of pure instinct. The element of surprise is lost. Now, only speed and power will determine the outcome. The sentinel has sounded the alarm. The choice is made. Flight over fight. The hunt begins. A torrent of restrained energy is finally unleashed upon the plains. Panic spreads like wind, a thunder of hooves echoing the primal fear of the hunted. But the lion's gaze is fixed on a greater prize, a challenge worthy of a king.
The giraffe's gallop seems ungainly, yet it is a powerful, ground-covering stride, born of necessity. The long neck becomes a pendulum, a biological marvel of engineering that stabilizes the immense frame at full speed. Across the plains, a primal drama unfolds, a test of endurance, strategy, and sheer will to live. Each footfall is a seismic event, a desperate drumming against the earth, propelling the giant forward. The hunter is relentless, fueled by an ancient instinct that knows no exhaustion, only the promise of a kill. The shadow of the pursuer grows larger. The ground trembles, not just from flight, but from fear. The moment of truth arrives, a desperate lunge to cripple the giant and end the chase. But the giraffe is not defenseless. The same legs that provide flight can deliver a devastating counterattack. A kick from a giraffe can shatter a lion's skull. A risk calculated and narrowly avoided. A moment's hesitation is all it takes. The prey seizes the opportunity, turning defense into distance. The hunter's certainty is shaken. The calculus of risk versus reward begins to shift. Instinct leads to strategy. The open plain favors the sprinter, but the woodland offers a different kind of sanctuary.
The hunter's greatest asset, unobstructed speed, is neutralized. The terrain has become an ally to the hunted.
Here, the giraffe's height is once again an advantage, turning the forest into a simple obstacle course.
Energy is a precious currency.
scar becomes a lesson written in the flesh. In the herd, there is safety, a collective strength that soothes the trauma of the individual. The immediate danger has passed, but the memory lingers. Peace is restored, but vigilance remains the price of life. For the hunter, failure is not an end, but a postponement. Hunger will return, and the hunt will begin anew. Another day closes. The survivor stands tall, a testament to the power of adaptation. The giraffe's neck, a marvel of anatomy, contains only 7 vertebrae, the same number as a human. A powerful heart and a network of specialized valves defy gravity to fuel the brain so far from the ground. Even a simple act like drinking becomes a moment of extreme vulnerability, a calculated risk in a dangerous world. Moments of weakness must be brief. Survival depends on returning to the advantage of height as quickly as possible. The neck is not just for reaching high, but also a formidable weapon in ritual combat. These are not gentle nudges, but powerful blows capable of breaking bones and establishing dominance.
True strength is often quiet, confident in its power, without the need for constant display.
Life here is interconnected. Even the smallest creatures play a vital role in the survival of the largest.
The night brings new dangers. Sleep is a luxury, taken in fleeting moments, never fully surrendering to unconsciousness.
Efficiency is key to survival. Every nutrient must be extracted from the tough, thorny diet. The savanna never truly sleeps. It speaks in a different language at night, a language of whispers and warnings. The sun rises again, promising another day, another challenge, another chance to endure. Height for vigilance, legs for escape, and a powerful kick for defense. For in this cycle of life and death, the ultimate triumph is the continuation of the species. The predator is not evil, but a vital force of nature, shaping the world it inhabits.
It is a world of delicate balance, where every creature is locked in an eternal dance.
The lessons of survival are etched into its very being, a story told without words. A living tower, perfectly adapted for its world, a true master of survival on the high.